DRC. It's a country in Central Africa, one of the largest on the continent and home to over 100 million people. The DRC has issued a notice to the world's second largest company, Apple, the makers of the iPhone.
Good morning, family. I hope you're doing fine right where you are, and if you're not doing fine, please do fine where you are. Yeah, probably the phone or the TV or the laptop you're using to watch me with was exploited. Some kid in Africa was exploited to ensure that you have that phone. The manufacturers, to ensure that they get profit, they had to exploit another child in order for you to have it.
The DRC has accused Apple of using quote-unquote blood minerals, minerals taken from conflict zones in the country. Now, the Democratic Republic of Congo wants Apple to stop. It has issued a formal cease and desist order. If Apple does not comply, it will face legal action.
Or rather, probably, you have sons and daughters, and you bought phones for them. But do you know the process of acquiring the minerals used to create those tools? Do you know why? In the DRC Congo, which is the richest country in Africa in terms of natural resources, has claimed, or rather, has done a very bold move. Told you Africa is reawakening. The DRC has decided to sue the almighty Apple. Yep, nobody does that. But the almighty Apple has been sued by the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. They are suing Apple because Apple has come into their country and bought blood minerals.
Now, first, let's look at what these blood minerals are and why they call that. The DR Congo is rich in certain minerals, metal deposits that are used to make electronic devices like the iPhone. 3 minerals found in the DRC go into making phones: tantalum, tin, and tungsten. Together, they are referred to as 3T. Now, these 3 minerals are found in the ground. They are mined, purified, and then transformed into phone parts. The Democratic Republic of Congo has all 3 in abundant quantities, making it an important country in electronic supply chains. But there's a problem: the blood part in blood minerals. The minerals are not in some safe area to be picked up at one's leisure. No, the minerals are mostly found in the eastern DRC, in provinces that have been embroiled in conflict for years. This is the region in question. The North and South Kivu provinces. This area is full of different armed groups. Some are terrorist outfits, like the local branch of the Islamic State. Then you have various militias. Some support the DRC government, others are backed by foreign powers. One prominent force is called the M23 group. They control vast swathes of land. They've been fighting against the Congolese government for years, and they're backed by Rwanda. Yes, that Rwanda of genocide and British deportation fame.
This situation has exacted a high human price, 15 million deaths, and it is the work of a neighboring country, Rwanda, whose intoxicating obsession with the abundant strategic resources lying beneath the soil of my country have led it to lose all sense of reason. This neighboring country is persisting and continuing its criminal enterprise to procure colossal economic benefits.
Rwanda backs an armed militia in the DRC. The M23 group takes over mineral-rich territory, forces locals, adults and children to mine these minerals and sends them across the border, letting Rwanda profit from the DRC's minerals. And the M23 are not the only ones doing this. Most of the armed groups have their own fiefdoms. They have carved out their own territory. They rule with an iron fist and force the local people to work in the mines, the 3T mines and others.
There is no political stability in the DRC, and some people are benefiting from the fights they have in the DRC. Now, the DRC said, enough of this. We are going to report those people who are responsible for fueling this conflict, because some people are profiting from the fights these people are having. And while they are fighting one another, while Congo is fighting Rwanda, while Congo is fighting the M23, some white imperialist who is only thinking about profit
is busy exploiting the African kids so that they could get cheap minerals and sell you very expensive phones. Do you know how much Apple devices really cost? Those things are really expensive. But the materials used to make them are bought from here in Africa.
That is why the DRC has called them blood minerals. Congolese blood is shed when they are extracted. The DRC says companies like Apple are complicit in all of this. And Apple, of course, is not the only one. Intel, HP, even Tesla. All these brands have been accused of using blood minerals. It's a charge that Apple and the others often deny, even though investigations over the years have proved this link. There are a number of studies about this, but the companies keep denying the reports. For proof, they point to a monitoring agency. The agency is run by rich white Europeans. It is incentivized to clear as many minerals as possible, and it is self-monitored. But despite these obvious red flags, companies like Apple use these agencies to get a clean chit. That is how your Western companies keep denying responsibility with the help of compromised monitoring agencies. After choosing to ignore the blood on their supplies, the same companies make all those sleek, fancy ads about a green future, inclusivity, diversity, or some of these other things to appeal to Gen Z. Talk about hypocrisy. Apple might be guilty of all this too, but the DRC will have to prove it. The country will be up against one of the biggest companies in the world, so we wish the Congolese the best of luck.
Just imagine it was your kid who is being exploited for such a low income so that you who is watching me could get a phone to use. Yep. This is the story I want us to cover today. I want us to watch this video, get to see what really happened, and then I shall share with you my thoughts by the end of the video, where we shall also have a deep, critical analysis. Let's dive in.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has filed criminal complaints against Apple subsidiaries in France and Belgium, accusing the firm of using conflict minerals in its supply chain. The DRC is a key source of what are referred to as 3T minerals: tin, tantalum and tungsten. They're used in the manufacturing of computers and mobile phones, among other minerals. However, some artisanal mines are run by armed groups, especially in the country's eastern end, and they're involved in some pretty heinous crimes. In parallel complaints filed to authorities, the DRC is accusing local subsidiaries of Apple France, Apple Retail France and Apple Retail Belgium of a range of offences. That includes covering up war crimes, handling stolen goods and carrying out deceptive commercial practices. Let's dig into the details of this case. Dr. Anna Akosua-Hankins-Evans is an attorney and a lecturer in EU law. She's joining us live on the programme tonight. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Well, let's start with the basics here. What's the legal standing for the DRC to file these cases in France and Belgium rather than going directly to the United States where the parent company is domiciled?
Well, I guess it was a strategic decision to file complaints in Europe, particularly in France and in Belgium. And those complaints are of criminal nature. So it targets the criminal conduct of corporations. And corporate responsibility is much more evolved in European countries oftentimes, in contrast to the United States. Actually, there was a complaint being filed by individuals in the United States that wasn't successful. So I assume that this should counter any concerns as to the success of such a complaint.
Indeed. When you speak about, corporate responsibility being a lot more evolved, I mean, some of the cases that come to mind for me would be Lafarge, for example, the cement manufacturer, being held to account for having paid ISIS, for example, in Syria operations some years ago, or five or 6 years ago.
Exactly. And the European Union is very concerned about corporate responsibility along value chains. A lot of initiatives by lawmakers have been launched with limited success. Nevertheless, it is at the forefront of human rights organizations' list of demands, and we will see how it will further evolve. So chances are way higher in a European context to get justice in that regard, in this case criminal justice.
I want to get back to the case that you mentioned in your first response. It was initially filed in 2019, and then in 2021, a judge essentially looked at this case against Apple, Dell, Microsoft, Tesla and Alphabet, which is accusing them of benefiting from forced labor in the DRC. And the judge in that case, Carl Nichols, argued that the harm alleged by the plaintiffs, quote, is not traceable to any defendant. So given that outcome in U.S. courts, what do what does the plaintiffs need to do here to essentially make an iron-tight case saying that illegally mined cobalt in the DRC did directly end up in Apple's hands and the firm knew about it?
The problem really lies in the fact that Apple does not source materials itself. Tesla doesn't source material itself. So it really just is a responsibility to guarantee that value chains remain clean. Now, as you mentioned already, we are dealing with minerals that are conflict minerals. So they are, they appear in conflict regions, and it is inevitable that harm encompasses the extraction of such minerals. So the question really is, what laws can we develop to maybe shift the burden of proof in such situations? But it was really, in fact, that also according to Apple itself and all its reports filed with the SEC in the United States, that its value chains are, on paper at least, clean.
Indeed, and that leads me to my next question, because as you say, Apple does these reports, these audits of its supply chains every year, and so far they say they've removed 26 companies, 14 last year, 12 the year before, which refused to take part in that audit process. That gives us a sort of sense of the sort of defense that Apple could use if this does go to trial, doesn't it?
I think evidence will be crucial in that regard, and also maybe establishing some kind of due diligence obligations on the part of the companies. And this is why a complaint in Europe makes more sense, there are certain assumptions drawn from the fact that a company didn't act or didn't further investigate. What is interesting in this case particularly is that the complaint also, in the case of Belgium, ties Belgium's engagement or Apple's engagement to the colonial past of Belgium, and thereby also states that Belgium has a special responsibility in making sure that harm doesn't happen again.
Indeed. Let's see how this plays out. It should be a very interesting case to keep an eye on. Dr. Anna Akosua-Hankins-Evans joining us there live on the program. She's an attorney and a lecturer in EU law.
Now, lately, Africa has been doing some very bold moves. Africa has been the champion of leading other Africans who are still afraid. And there is no any other place I can go apart from the Malis, the Burkinabe, and the Nigerians. These three people came together and they decided they are going to kick out France from their countries. It's hard. Sometimes it's always hard while doing something by yourself. It's really hard. These three countries had to come together and kick France out of their country. Sometimes a single country, France would have overwhelmed them. But for DRC, there is this bold move of accusing Apple. The profit that company makes is enough to feed that country in years. Just a single year profit is enough to feed that DRC in years. But they still didn't care about that. We are living in a capitalistic world where money talks, and wisdom is just another thing. The one who has wisdom is less than the one who has money. Money talks. Even if you have foolish things to say, money still talks. But DRC decided, despite the fact that Apple is big and all this, they are going to sue them for exploiting the African kids and for buying minerals that are not clean. We have these three minerals: tin, tungsten, and titanium. Tin, tungsten, and titanium. Now, the manufacturers call them the 3T. These 3T are key components in making electronic products. Apple products are very expensive, but they really ensure that, one thing with capitalism is maximize profit. minimize effort and production, minimize the process of production and maximize the profit. That is how it goes. The DRC is a country that has been destabilized for a very long time. We had Patrice Lumumba. No, we had Leopold. Leopold is the one who started all this. This man killed 10 million documented Africans. 10 million. What about the undocumented? That's why it started. It started with the Berlin Conference, when the Europeans decided to divide Africa among themselves. After this, what happened next? The Berlin Conference ends. We have another black person who comes into power. This black person is overthrown by another black person. Another black person comes ahead and tries to find a diplomatic way of bringing peace into that country. And this person was Patrice Lumumba. He was very eloquent. He was very verbal in how he was saying his words. He would see something and point it straight away. We don't want this to happen. You know, Patrice Lumumba pointed and called out the Belgians and the CIA in front of everyone and told them to stop exploiting Africa. That was a one man, but he was never backed by anyone. The people Patrice Lumumba thought were backing him did not. Mobutu Sese Seko was a close friend to Patrice Lumumba, but he was the one planning to betray him and to betray the entire country. Mobutu Sese Seko did not only betray Patrice Lumumba, he betrayed the whole country. You understand? After he betrayed the whole country, he opened ways. He opened ways for other countries to come. By betraying, I mean he plotted the death of his friend, Patrice Lumumba, and he was killed. It was such a bad thing, you know. After this, he opened ways for these Western people to now come in because he was now the puppet. They drained, until Mobutu Sese Seko was forcefully and shamefully removed from power. He ran away and I don't know, he died somewhere in Morocco. He died such a bad death, considering how he also lived. You know, you live by the sword and you die by the sword. So many people forget this. How you live will determine sometimes the method you exit this world. Okay. Now after Mobutu Sese Seko has been overthrown, we come another president. You know, we're now starting having civil wars in DRC. The country has been destabilized by the Western power so as to ensure minerals are being taken away from them. Minerals are profiting other countries, but the average Congolese is going hungry. Congo got a problem. Congo got a problem. These puppet leaders are the problem. I liked the president FELIX TSHISIKELEDI while he pointed out Macron and told him to his face, "We are no jokes, don't exploit us no more." When he pointed out Paul Kagame for wanting to crush his government, he told him, I'll fight you, Paul Kagame. That is what he told his Paul Kagame. Now what follows is this. When Africans can stand up, like we see DRC stand up and speak against all this, that is when we see the real change. When we see people like Chad, countries like Senegal, the West African countries, they're really standing up against neocolonialism. And this neocolonialism is being supported by the Africans, the black imperialist. The black imperialist is worse than the white imperialist. You know, he's even worse to his kind than the white imperialist ever was. Yeah, and whatever FELIX TSHISIKELEDI did to Apple by preventing and preserving their respect and culture and their children, I applaud him for doing this. He did such a nice work, and congratulations to the DRC. You are the most blessed country in the world. And see you in the next one, guys. This is EFK Original Documentaries.